This is Joe's Corner 76. I will be discussing the human condition. In order to change it, we have to be involved. Why Trudeau must go. This is an opinion piece, but I want as best as I can to base it on facts. My sense is that most people are tired of the drama teacher with the Peter Pan complex who has opinions that he knows that are right for us. He's in his own bubble world where all is good. We aren't. I just see a drama teacher, the scrapper who loves to fight, but I don't see a politician with a plan, a dream, and a solution for Canada. Insulting tweets, Facebook mockeries, conspiracy theories that don't make sense of who he is will not make him go away. People have got to look closely at Trudeau and the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party was at the bottom of the barrel with no one who had a chance of turning their fortunes around. In desperation, they took a gamble. Let's elect Trudeau as party leader, and they did in 2013. Maybe he can get us votes because of his name. They didn't elect him on his accomplishments in private life or public life. He was a trust fund baby with a name. You know what? Their gamble paid off. Why? People, as always, get tired. And after 10 years under Harper, they wanted to change. We all seem to think the grass is greener on the other side of the hill. Trudeau portrayed himself as Mr. Sunshine. He was going to light up those dark corners. He never provided a clear agenda as to what he would do. He was asked why half of his cabinet was female. His reply, it's 2016. Trudeau did not choose the best people for the job. I took this as the first warning sign. Trudeau promised low budget deficits in his projections when first elected. He never met these goals. In fact, he had much larger deficits. You can look this up, and I urge you to do so. Most politicians want to reduce deficits or hold the line. His response was, budgets will balance themselves. On August 18, 2018, when Trudeau was asked about the economy, he said he doesn't think about monetary policy. He has made it known that he doesn't have any plans to decrease spending. It's very clear to me that Trudeau has never had to worry about a budget and the cost of things. He doesn't relate to me and my struggles to keep afloat in this economy. Do you feel he relates to you and your situation? He's constantly telling us he is an ardent feminist. Judy Wilson-Raybould, the first Indigenous cabinet minister who was the Minister of Justice, resigned after she would not do Trudeau's bidding on SNL scandal. Judy Philpott of the Treasury Board resigned in protest too. It seems he can't keep strong, competent women who disagree with him. In Vancouver, he wrote the reporter. He apologized and said, I'm sorry. If I had known you were working for a national newspaper, I never would have been so forward. When questioned about this later, he said, who knows where her mind was, and I fully respect her ability to experience things differently. Remember when he pushed the female NDP member aside? What about the time when a young woman was making a complaint about religious restrictions and she used the word mankind? Trudeau condescendingly told her she should use the word people kind. I think this self-described feminist is a fake and uses the term when he thinks it makes him look good. Trudeau throws the word racist around a lot. If you don't agree with his position, you are a racist. He tells us we have practiced genocide. I don't agree at all. Canada has made mistakes, but we never ever set about the practice of totally eliminating any race using mass murder. We learn from our mistakes, and we are more than willing to change. I know we have one of the most tolerant countries in the world. When preaching about inequality, what about the promises of clean water and decent housing? This still is not resolved for the Indigenous people. What about his opposition to the development of pipelines and other natural resources? The Indigenous people want their piece of the economic pie. How did he get away with dressing up in blackface so much he can't remember how many times he did it? And he gets a pass? Any conservative would have been buried alive. Does it make you wonder if it's the result of left-wing media like the Star or CBC? I think the CBC needs to be defunded, or better yet, privatized. I don't know now or never will believe his government or the health minister on how they handled the pandemic if they handled it as fast as they could. They delayed putting restrictions on people coming into Canada from places that had COVID-19 outbreaks, claiming in the case of China that it was racist. In all fairness, though, all other levels of government did this too. Chinese Canadians urged the government to restrict visitors, and this was taken as racist. This government tried to make a deal for vaccine with China, and they were turned down. Our allies were working on vaccines, and they had them way earlier than we did. Why were we not working with them on this? We had put all our eggs in one basket. They didn't provide any timely information on COVID, as far as I'm concerned. Look at the poor situations Canada's healthcare system is in. More money alone won't fix it, but it does need more funding. But long term, we need to have a national health plan, not 13 different ones. This type of plan works in other countries. Could Trudeau get the provinces to look at this idea? I'm not going to outline all of the Trudeau scandals. All you need to do is Google Trudeau scandals. This might open your eyes. I don't think this government believes in accountability or transparency. The ArriveCan app cost $54 million. Look at the IT contracts that were awarded to suppliers for the federal government. A Commons committee ordered federal departments to hand over documents about this act. The Canadian Border Services Agency told the committee it would not reveal the subcontractors who benefit from these contracts. This is a situation where the PM and cabinet should have ordered the information passed over to them. The principle that the public service are the servants of the people and not the people who are the servants. I urge you to take the time, and you will see numerous examples of this. One group of tech entrepreneurs said their programmers could have created the ArriveCan in a few days. What about $20 million spent on Fed's COVID tracking app? It was ineffective and a waste of time and money. They are investigating another $60 million in spending on tech programs. Canadians need to know which plans could be handled by the public service and which need to be outsourced. There are more incidents like this. Check it out. It's your money. Demand accountability. Gun control. Do you think this is a joke? I do. The so-called gun buyback is a farce. This plan was announced in May 2020. In the year-end review 2020, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino admitted that the government hasn't got a clue on how to handle the buyback plan. He said the government is taking the time to get it right. The government ordered the ban on 1,500 types of guns, and almost 3 years ago, and still it hasn't given us the promised buyback plan. Counties don't want to be involved in the plan, nor do police forces and provincial governments. Neither the armed forces or the post office would be appropriate agencies to handle this. It's predicted to cost billions if implemented. This plan is a fiasco. What's behind this? I'll tell you. Politics. Trudeau bans all these guns from law-abiding citizens who are licensed and trained to handle them. Trudeau wants the progressives to think they are safer because of this ban. Shootings are increasing and gun violence is up. Why? Because illegal handguns are used by the gangbangers and more keep pouring in. We need more prevention to stop the influx of handguns. You would think that at the same time, penalties for guns used in crimes would increase. While taking guns from legal gun owners, they have lessened the penalty for gun criminals. Trudeau's government has promised to crack down on crime, but then they introduce legislation to reduce sentences for gun crimes and reporting and importing of guns. Do you believe this? Last year, Trudeau told the New York Times that Canada is becoming a new kind of country, not defined by our history or European heritage, but by pan-cultural heritage. He went on to say, there is no core identity, no mainstream in Canada. He concluded he sees Canada as the first post-nation state. Let's define post-national, which indicates non-nationalism, which is the way nation states and national identities lose their importance relative cross-nation and supranational organizations and global entities. I think this means that we will be subject to global entities, or in essence, a world government deciding our fate. We fought and paid the price for our country, our freedom and identity. Only a national state will protect us and our interests. So very, very clearly say to Trudeau, there is Canadian identity, and we will preserve it. Trudeau is playing the old game of divide and conquer. Ignore the West and look to Ontario to win. He must have learned it off Dad. The federal government takes all the money from the West for federal transfers to other provinces, but wants to close down the energy sector there. We need a government that supports national unity and equal treatment for all regions. We can't keep giving Quebec special deals like on the carbon tax. Do you really believe Trudeau will do this? Under Trudeau, our standing on the world stage is diminished. He preens and lectures the European leaders about green energy when they are facing a severe energy shortage due to the war in Ukraine. The India trip was a disaster, and it offended what could be a major trading partner to replace China. He is not considered very important by U.S. President Joe Biden, who doesn't regard him as a player, and he can't hold the attention of the U.S. administration like Mulroney, Chrétien, and Harper. We need that connection to further Canada's interests. Our allies don't regard us as a reliable ally. With Trudeau's expressed admiration of China, his slowness in canceling Huawei as part of our communication systems, and not appearing to want to condemn China for its aggressive actions, we are not included in new security arrangements between Australia, the U.S., and Britain because we have lost the confidence of our allies as a reliable partner. We need our allies for our defense. Freedom is being eroded through the lack of government transparency. The public service doing the politicians' bidding rather than the people's, and bills C-11 and C-16 and C-21, which erode our freedoms, as well as the state media that blindly follows the government's lead. The government needs to develop plans to handle pandemics, the deficit, inflation, future economic growth, a clear policy on China, energy development, updated military, national unity, and transparency. There needs to be a dialogue on immigration so Canadians have a voice in how it happens. Maybe we need an honest admission. We're in deep shit and it has to change now. We can't keep spending at the rate we are. We need to revamp our military so it can protect our national interests, be a partner to our allies, and offer a strong presence in the far north to assert our sovereignty. We don't need Trudeau saying in 2013 he would not buy the F-35 fighter and ran on that in the election in 2015. Today he announced the government's going to get them. Canada originally signed up for these planes in 2010, and with Trudeau's antics, costs will be higher and delivery dates longer. Green energy, carbon taxes, and lower emissions. This government and the ones before them never met their emission targets. They won't do it now either. Carbon taxes won't do it. All they do is increase heating bills, increase transportation costs, which increases the price of all our goods to rise along with increased production costs to produce these goods. The government can't change the country to a green economy alone. It will take the cooperation of industry and the population and the government having to input and develop a plan for sustainable green energy that accepts and realizes that fossil fuels are here until 2060 and beyond. The world wants them. It takes a definite agreement that two things that can immediately reduce emissions are natural gas, which releases 50% less emissions than coal, and nuclear energy that releases none. Canada has a vast amount of natural gas that can be liquefied and the cleanest oil produced in the world, as well as expertise to help develop nuclear energy. We produce some of the cleanest energy in the world. We just need the infrastructure to get it to market around the world and to our fellow Canadians. The majority of Canadians, along with Indigenous people, support the building of pipelines. Why do we continue to lose $25 billion a year because we sell our energy to the U.S. at deep discounts? Why are we importing dirty oil to the tune of billions of dollars? This money should stay in Canada. Trudeau, build pipelines across the country to deliver our energy to the world and our fellow Canadians. Build ports to send out liquefied natural gas. This would be an economic boost for a generation and beyond. Mr. Trudeau, you used the Emergency Measure Acts to clear out the truckers. This was like using a sledgehammer on an ant. Couldn't you use the notwithstanding clause to build the pipelines if you can't get a national agreement on this? Don't you already ignore some provinces? Green energy. The Liberals and Trudeau are obsessed with turning Canada into a green energy country. Everything will be electric and no fossil fuels will be required. Everyone will drive electric cars, use electric transport, and heat our homes, and use electricity for our manufacturing center. I have a number of questions. Do you honestly believe that this government, or for that matter, any, can make the country green? I don't. Look at the dog's breakfast in Ontario, in the Ontario Liberal Green Plan that was created. Billions in cost and no reliable green energy. What is the plan to build the electric infrastructure to power all of this? What will it cost? What happens to the 170,000 Canadians working in the energy sector now? How reliable will electrical vehicles be in the winter? What if they can't be relied on? When will the charging stations be built to handle all the cars? Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault said the cost to transition to electric vehicles is $100 billion by 2035. This doesn't include the cost of charging stations, retraining mechanics. This will be borne by the dealers. There are also going to be super high costs to dispose of used batteries. This will be borne by the municipalities. The cost to develop electric car models is 3 to 5 times the cost of developing internal combustion engines. When you consider the total emissions for manufacturing electric vehicles, it will take 5 years or more to produce lower emissions than gas ones. Most of the components from electric cars are made in China, from minerals mined in China, and they use coal to produce the components. Is this really what we want? We still don't have anything in place right now to fully make electric cars here from our own materials. Canadians want competent government, and I currently don't see this doing this in areas like passport, air travel, getting things built in Canada, economic management, energy security, and they're handling pandemics, solving healthcare, the deficit, the military, and most of all, protecting our freedoms of speech, free press, and freedom to be ourselves. I believe Trudeau is a zealot who wants to get his way no matter what. There appears to be no one in the Liberal Party who will say to Trudeau, "You've gone too far, you need to go." All Canadians need to finally remove the blinders, see the reality, and vote these pests out. So many don't vote, and if you support the Liberals, and if you don't support the Liberals, rather, you can make a difference. Cast a ballot. It's a privilege many countries don't have. The Liberals lost the popular vote last time and won a minority government. Why? Because they concentrated on the urban voter in Ontario and got enough votes to squeak through. And Ontario needs to take him out. I believe that the Conservatives have a reasonable plan to help us recover. I ask you to study the plan. Don't be swayed by Liberal bullshit and vote with your mind. Do you really think voting with your emotions paid off? We have a better future. And if you want a better future, it's up to you. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Joe's Corner 76. You can hear me on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Radio Public, Stitcher, and YouTube at Joe's Corner 76.